Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Ron. It is Saturday, the 18th of January, a little after 10 a.m. So we get started. See if we have any questions. Um, we left something on the table from last week, but just see if we have any questions first. See if anybody has anything. Okay. Well, if you have a question, you can always we'll always come back to it. Okay. Uh, I guess where I thought about starting anyway, unless someone has something else they want to discuss. Nick made a statement on last week, and I was talking to Pastor about it. I thought it was interesting. Uh, he talked about time being a symbol of death, and that got my attention, and it made me think about Scripture and looking at it in a spiritual way. Does that mean that uh, uh, death came about uh, at the time that that was said? If you do this thing, you will surely die. I was wondering if there's a link there. Uh, was that the mark of time rather than uh, man being clothed in skin? And again, looking at that spiritually, okay, not necessarily as a truthful uh, rendition of creation, but just thought it was an interesting statement. So I like to start there if there are no objections and see what we glean from it. Okay,
Sounds
Nicholas.
good.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Um, yeah, 1 second. So I made a statement relating time and the concept of death. I believe it was last week, but we were talking about the physical manifestation of energy that we see as the planets and what they've always represented throughout history by various cultures. And Saturn is the Roman deity associated with the planet and what the planet is named after. And I made the comparison between the concept of drew the relationship between the concept of time, the concept of death, and the planet Saturn, and that's what we'll continue with, at least at first. The uh, Saturn is the Roman interpretation of older things, and I think, as I said last week, I believe anyway, as you get further away from Kemet or further away from the African understanding and the more ancient understanding of these physical symbols, you get more into the uh, things that are kind of negatively interpreted in general, I believe. Um, but in this case, it's more of a, on its face, negative interpretation coming out of a more European understanding. Because that whole mindset is more, we say, reactionary uh, in terms of its relationship with the universe. But if you look up a painting called, you may have seen it before, Saturn Devouring His Son is the name of a painting that depicts Greek mythology, I believe, because the Greek, which is older, equivalent of Saturn is Kronos. So Kronos devouring his son or Saturn devouring his son are similar. Question?
No.
Oh, okay. So these are similar ideas. So Kronos is the Greek version, a more ancient version of what became Saturn. And there's that same thing in Greek mythology where Kronos was eating his children. So Kronos is also where you get the root of the Greek word. Well, it is the Greek word that is the root of things that mean are associated with time in English. When you think of chronology, chrono is the sort of prefix that is time. So we see these same things in Greek and Roman mythology. So the sort of mythological interpretation of spiritual reality is what these stories are about. So when we see the representation of time, either Kronos or Saturn, eating children, what that means is the spirit becoming trapped within or ensnared within the space that time, as we generally understand it, exists. So if you think about it, spirit or consciousness becoming trapped, quote unquote, within the realm that allows for the experience of time. It is in a sense, the beginning of the recognition of the finite as opposed to the infinite. And it is that distinction between the infinite and the finite where you get the concept of death. It is the concept of the end of something as defined by the passage of what we might experience as time as a result of having been, we're not trapped, but as a result of having found ourselves stuck in this realm that allows for that experience. Any questions or anything response so far?
Nick, when I thought about that after Ron raised it, what I thought about is that time actually returns everything to its original state. Because over time, everything that is natural deteriorates. And it goes back to its original state, which is a part of the surface of the earth before it begins to live again. Makes sense?
Yeah. What we see within the context of our own ego is the end, is the sort of negative aspect of the concept of the finite. But spiritually speaking, it is the sort of a limitation placed on the growth of confusion and ego. There is a cutoff point that forces your return to the beginning, despite what may have happened within the realm that allows for the experience of negativity. So it is.
Give me an example if you can, Nick. I'm trying to follow you here.
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of you say that again then
So time is the thing that prevents the it places a limitation on the upper limit of confusion and negativity, essentially.
Okay.
So regardless of how out of alignment things may get, there is always that the fact that that takes place within a finite space. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So it's like a even within our own lifetime.
Are you both up?
093, would you mute your phone, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Even within the concept of, even within the space of one lifetime, the limiting the approach of death is the return to where we come from as a result of our sort of not getting the lessons perfectly correct while we're in this experience. So it's the beginning of the refreshing process. If we got the lessons perfectly correct, and there's a lot to go into, I believe that's associated with that concept, but we would not even need to experience this physical death at all.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were saying. Yeah, I just want to make sure I understood that.
But Nick,
Mhm.
when you say if we get these lessons or get this understanding perfect, you're talking more about having being complete spiritually based on returning to beginning, as opposed to being perfect without error.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. This idea of perfection that is developed within the context of ego is also itself just a product of this material experience. It has nothing to do with spirit or energy or anything that we could truly define as perfect, because that experience does not take place within the physical realm or experience. So when we get a bunch of planets in the sky that appear to align in the sky in a week or so, that's kind of like a sort of subconscious reminder that there is a path out of time. It's the, celestial stepping stones that we can see, in a sense. Anyway.
I guess my thinking kind of went a little different when you made the statement. I see what you're saying, and maybe this ties in and maybe it doesn't help me out. If we come back all the way up to when we were in physical locations, there was a group in Columbia, there was a group in Gaffney, there was a group that met in Monday in Gaffney. So you had Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, 3 different groups of people, and yeah, there was some people that did in more than one area. But if you think about the lessons we had and the kind of clarity that we had then compared to now, when the groups came together and we started looking at this differently, it seems like we covered so much more ground. We moved a lot faster than we were moving as 3 individual groups. And from what I can tell, at least I hope, nobody was left behind. We became one group, and even though those 3 groups studied differently in those 3 locations, we blended as one, and we moved not only in unison, but at a much faster pace. And I mark that by the things we're studying now and what we've learned in the last couple of years compared to the pace we were going then. So I look at that as as influencing time, uh, and that to me is something that I've always, since I've noticed it anyway, found to be a bit intriguing. So when you said that, I've always kind of considered that we have, without setting out to do so, have have figured out how to move time, or how to move in time and move ahead of time, above time, however you want to see it. But our learning curve to me kind of marks that. It kind of and I hope I kind of feel like I'm rambling now, but does that tie into what you're saying? Or death meaning not knowing, in my example, not knowing who you are, and not being aware of what you're doing, or where a man is. Does that, can that be tied into what you're saying, or am I off base on that?
No, I think it does. I would say that I would emphasize that in my belief and understanding, time is a quality of the experience that we have, but it is not a real thing, to use that term somewhat loosely. So as we all know, as you get older, your perception of time changes. It is time begins to move faster in terms of how you experience it. There's a lot of reasons for that, but it's that same thing happens within the group setting as well. But I would say again that time is a quality of the experience that is a result of what this material sort of realm or the space of creation is, but it itself is not a thing that dominates any aspect of our experience. It is an extension of our, or quality of our perception.
It only dominates if we allow it to, right, Nick?
Right.
Because I see COVID as having been a portal that opened between space and time. And when Ron talked about the unicity of the three groups that exist now, I see that as the portal having been opened that granted us an opportunity to experience a space that we did not really know how to explain or didn't even know existed. And that is a space that elevates our processing of events beyond time, while at the same time we are occupying this space of time in the earth. For example, as Ron said earlier, it appears as though when we three groups came together as one, our understanding accelerated and has brought us to where we are now. So what I'm saying in essence is, had it not been for COVID opening that portal, we would be looking at something totally different than what we see now. I believe that the functionality that we are experiencing now is based upon spirituality as opposed to a material, a material presence of each of us. We don't truly, we see images, some of us, when we look at it on Zoom. However, for the most part, we don't see each other, but we experience each other. Even those who are not on Zoom, we don't see their face. Their image is not present, is not being shown. I do believe that we are experiencing a earthly type of spirituality by virtue of being able to communicate, being able to experience each other's presence without being in a physical place. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that the portal opened, don't get me wrong. I also believe that the people who were um, extricated from their bodies because of the presence of COVID became an active source who aided in our journey in search of of spirituality, in search of who we really are. And what I mean by that is, I believe that when they left their bodies, they saw things as they are. And in doing that, we're able to um, influence the energy of the earth, thus influencing us because we have become open vessels, seeking the spiritual understanding. And we've also become open vessels who recognize that our material existence is in this space that's governed by time, yet our existence is not controlled by time. Does that make sense so far? So, so all the deaths, all the people who transitioned from their bodies during this COVID experience worldwide were necessary in order to increase um, the forces of energy that we have been receptive to, but at the same time have been influencing in a way that um, makes everything better for those who live as humans in this earth. And you say, well, what about the chaos? Well, first of all, you can't, you cannot plant seeds without disruption of the ground. So this, what we call chaos, this disruption, gives us an opportunity to sow the seeds of spirituality in this realm of the earth, thus granting opportunity for humanity to see those things that stand between it and who they really are. I hope that makes sense. I see someone got pearls in their head.
No, I think it makes sense. I guess I wanted to want to add when you bring up COVID. I think and I think I'm saying the same thing. I just say it in my own words, but it's almost like COVID opened up windows of opportunity for us to see what we're supposed to see. And I don't just mean this group, but I'll come back to that. If you remember, the skies became clearer. The oceans started to cleanse themselves. You saw animals that were mortal enemies coming together and laying together. It's almost like the time period that we were in did not exist for a small minute, or at least pockets of it didn't exist. For the examples of pockets of it, as I said, when our three groups came together, uh, our understanding opened up. It accelerated, and we were seeing things that we had not seen before, and but at the same time, there were other people opening books of the same kind, opening the scriptures and theirs did not accelerate. Religion did not accelerate. So there were pockets of understanding that I guess kind of gave me another understanding, another look at time, and how time was meant to be a tool and not meant to be a prisoner or a babysitter, if you will, but how it can be something that is used to help you to see who you are and bring about understanding.
But Ron, when you say that, when you talk about how things cleared up naturally in terms of the ocean, the air became pure. Would you not say that this was a period that we were being shown we're given a glimpse rather of what beginning was and what could be?
Yes, exactly. In the like manner that Kamala Harris did, her campaign, we got caught up in something. We got caught up in what could be and what should be. And all of that, I think, is part of that same energy. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Audrey, you had something?
I just had a question. Good morning, everybody. When just hearing you all talk, and I agree that time is kind of a tool. And I think but I was wondering about all the people that the Bible talked about that live for whatever, umpteen million years. But I think that's an example of living your life without counting time. I mean, because we count time, we count days, we count weeks, we count months, we count years by our birthdays, we count it by, you know, going to school, we count it. It's so pervasive in our lives. We count it by getting to work on time, by getting off work on time. We count it by, you know, meeting somebody for lunch at 2 o'clock or whatever. So we count it all the time, and it's so pervasive in our lives that it seems to mark us instead of us marking it in a way that we choose. So I think those people living a long time is an example of people living life for life, as opposed to living life based on time. Anyway, that was my comment.
Thank you. I think that living in the midst of time does not necessarily mean we have to live in the clutches of time. I also believe that the time was brought into existence by the sacred, well, let me put it this way, by the priesthood of the Kemites for the purpose.
Hello.
Someone say something?
Yeah, this is Sheldon. I wanted to speak on all of that.
Okay.
What you
Okay.
sorry. Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to say sorry for interrupting, but you know what I mean. Hello, everyone. This is Sheldon. I first wanted to go back, like, say it again.
You're supposed to say that.
Oh, okay. I want to first, right quick, go back to the I guess the reference story or scripture, whatever, not whatever, but what you would call it, that Ron mentioned, and it being the death, that you will surely experience death. excuse me, and then what death means, and then move into time because it's directly connected. So the death that is being referred to there is the separation from the, and I've been like writing some stuff down, the separation of the direct consciousness connection with the Creator. That is the death, losing that conscious connection. Prior to that loss of conscious connection, and I'm saying conscious on purpose, there was a blissful known experience with the Creator. The death signaled the loss of that direct conscious connection. In other words, it's just that death is that the person is not aware knowingly, readily, and in the forefront of that connection. The connection is never lost, but it's just their awareness is lost. Now, also in that there was through that separation or that perceived that conscious separation, there was a shift into in a sense a lower vibrational frequency, which is the current spiritual world that was conscious became away from the spiritual world that was once conscious awareness. And so then you have the shift into the physical world. You have the shift into the idea of time. Everything slows down. It is an element of this particular world. And of course, as you focus on it, and as you were about to start talking about with the Kemites and things like that, it's almost if you get stuck closer or further into that physical world just by the concentration of it. So as Audrey was mentioning in terms of living just now, that is when time breaks down, and it's also when we are going beyond this particular physical world. And then one last thing I want to say about the whole process is that we also cannot look at, not that it's been done, just to say it for anyone who is listening, that we cannot look at this as a negative thing or like, darn, why we had to do this. Because along with this, it was actually it was a choice. It was through free will. It was necessary, and it gives the opportunity from that, in a sense, the veil of that time in the physical world actually causes to learn and to experience and to be part and experience the Creator in a different way. And then the one last thing I thought about when Pastor Richard and Nick talked about the idea of perfection, and perfection pretty much being based upon what has already been determined to be the right answer before experience, in a sense, has brought you to that particular point. So when the idea of something being perfect or trying to be perfect is automatically thinking that we or us or I think that I know what perfect is. And so when it came to what we even thought or expected and how things should turn out for the election, that was us, in a sense, at that moment getting caught up with the idea of perfection, because we then determined ahead of time what exactly something needed or should look like, instead of more so being led more so in the moment and coming from a standpoint of whatever is best to move forward at this particular moment and being led by our heart. I think I'm finished.
Okay. I think that what happened to us is that, without saying it, when we looked at the possibilities of Kamala Harris winning, subconsciously we were embracing what we felt like our balance should look like, as opposed to reminding ourselves that what it looks like is not up to us to determine. And our experiences have shown us, our spiritual experiences have shown us that the spiritual influences in the earth does not look anything like like the promises of a political campaign. So I think we are, as humans, got caught up in that because we want change so desperately.
Yeah.
Now,
I agree.
thank
Yeah.
you. When the Kemites brought time into existence, it was necessary. And I'm not talking about a watch. When we're talking about time, I'm sure that Nick, Shell, the rest of us, we're not talking about a watch that measures time. We're talking about the existence of the movement in the earth. Because time is experienced by your having to move from one room to the other as opposed to instantly being in there. That space between you and the room is what brings time into existence. What the Kemites did, they brought the measurements of time into existence by virtue of the calendar and by virtue of counting the hours in a day. They brought that into existence, time into existence. And in doing so, it was done, it's necessary, because if it were not for the rudiments of time, then we would never have gotten to the place where we are now in terms of our quest to understand who we are versus what religion says we are. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
So this the time of this the time was brought into existence to give us the space to be who we were created to be. It did not give us the space to simply end slavery or to end oppression. It gave us the time to see who we are, because when we see who we are, that is when all those things, oppression, slavery, all that stuff ends. We When we understand the neutrality of time, then we are more able, or should I say, we are more capable of using it in a manner that is beneficial to humanity as opposed to simply being beneficial to us. When we look at time from the perspective of a watch or a clock, then and we have to, as Audrey said, being at work on time, that's beneficial to me because I'm at work on time. I have a job. When we talk about time in terms of spirituality, we are talking about enough space for us to move from one understanding to another so as to move us closer to the space where we understand who we are, that we begin to see the spiritual nature of our existence. And to me, a clearer understanding of that is knowing that you are God. What do I mean by that? When you know that you are God, then you are not bound by time, even though you function in the within the boundaries of time, in this world, but not of this world. Bringing understanding, but not being being molded by time. When we think about this, when we talk about the beginning, we talk about, well, we are actually talking about the beginning of humanity in the earth. And the question becomes, who brought the first human into the earth? How did the first human get to the earth? The first human came into the earth as a direct result of the Creator desiring that first human to be birthed from the womb of an African woman. So that means that that first birth of a human into this earth says that that human had a direct relationship with its creator, which means that its spiritual essence was inextricably tied to the essence of the creator. And everyone else in the earth came from that entity, that child that was birthed in Akebalon. So everyone else came from that first human, meaning that the further the people who came into existence in the earth, the further they were from, I think Nick mentioned this earlier, he did, further from the African, the less spiritual it is. And that being said, then the reason that the African is more spiritual is because of its direct relationship with the essence of the one who brought it into existence. And the further you get from the first human in terms of your your existence in the earth, the less empathy you have for humanity. And so when we look at it that way, what we are seeing is that the Creator allowed the Creator birthed us, and we birthed everyone else, which means that we are responsible for everyone else. And the Creator granted us an understanding of time and space for the express purpose for us to create in our image and likeness, meaning bring the essence of understanding spirituality to those who we birth into the earth. And in doing that, that is what brings balance into the earth. That is what brings a sense of loving kindness in the earth on the part of all of those who exist in the earth. If those who were first birthed in Akebalon are not doing that, then that means that that those who have come from the womb of the African are not going to be able to do it either. And the last group of people who were birthed into the earth from the seed of Africa are Europeans, and they are the farthest. They are farther away from the beginning of humans in the earth than anyone else on the earth. Therefore, it was necessary to create this sense of time within the confines of this material world to give us the space to civilize those who were not civilized, to bring people who were selfish, greedy, etc., into a space where they understand that you are to be reflective of the image and likeness, not the physical likeness, but the image and likeness in terms of emotions and spirituality as as the one who brought you into existence. And without this space, without this time, then we would not be able to do it. Now, I said earlier that time is neutral. time is neutral, and how time functions is based on you, rather than stick to the plan, or rather than be to follow the pathway of bringing everyone to a place of loving kindness. The naivete of the African caused the African to end up being captured, being dominated, being murdered, being raped, all these other things. And then when the African realized what was happening, the Africans started fighting back, or attempted to fight back the way that they were conquered. And that never worked. So here we are now in this space where we understand that the African is to bring everyone into a space of unicity from the power of spiritual understanding, as opposed to from the weaponry that has been devised by men in the earth. The weaponry is not just a gun or a sword. The weaponry also are the policies and laws that manipulate people and keep them in bondage, and that includes religion. So the weapons of our warfare are not policies and laws. The weapons of our warfare is not a sword or a gun. The weapons of our warfare is understanding who we are. And in doing so, placing that understanding into the macro for the purpose of being an influence upon the children who came from the womb of Africa. And that in itself brings us to a space of balance in the earth. That in itself helps us see that to hate anyone in this earth is to hate yourself, because everyone in the earth came from you. So when the scripture says we are to dominate, to add to what I just said, I was talking to Ron a couple of weeks ago. I think it was 2 weeks anyway, and he said something about he found something in his research that said that the whole earth was called a Kabbalah in the beginning. And what dawned on me, and what I see in there at this moment also, is that the whole earth was called a Kabbalah because the whole earth had not yet broken away from or separated from the continent of the beginning of life, which is Africa. And that says to me that the land masses that floated away from or broke away from the center of life itself was indicative, or a message showing us how different the people would be, and how we are responsible for bringing them back to where they originated from. And also says to me that the reason the whole earth was called a Kabbalah is because the earth is the birthplace of life, meaning that the life of the human was brought into this earth, and the spiritual nature of it, that life permeates the earth. And it says that regardless of how far we are from each landmass, that spiritual essence of our being still occupies those places. And by virtue of us being able to understand the wisdom of creation, understand the wisdom of existence, understand the wisdom of our Creator, that means that we are able to influence everyone and everything in the earth, because all of it is the birthplace of life. And the first entity of humanity in this earth was from that central place of life, which is Africa / Okabelon. Does that make sense? I know I said a lot.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, sir.
So that neutrality, we have the opportunity to bend time to what we see as the wisdom of the Creator and the necessity of bringing humanity together in one space of understanding. Not meaning that Nick go think like I think and Ron going to think like Audrey, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the essence of our existence when it comes to when it comes to our emotions towards each other, loving kindness,
Yeah.
Mercy, those kinds of things, those attributes. Nicholas?
And if I can add something to that, when Mom, you talked about every second of every day being regulated, and as you talk about, it's not about the time on a watch or whatever. The this so-called CP time is a spiritually instinctive response to how the European mindset likes to be regulated by time in the sense of the ticking of the watch. CP time is based more on a recognition instinctually of the natural cycles that we can recognize and to use, that we can use for spiritual benefit or for the cohesiveness of society and harmony, etc., as opposed to being ruled by what time is in the European sense, where every single day, every second of every day is regulated. That is the European has a greater affinity with that type of being ruled or regulated by what time, the experience of time, because of the sort of on average weaker connection to spirit and the weaker connection to the recognition of the natural cycles that we can use to recognize that are essentially helping us learn and remember and teach us the path back out of the realm of confusion or whatever.
I
So I
see
just
that.
wanted to say that.
Yeah, I had not thought about it like that, but I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, Sunday morning. We started at 11, we end at 12. With us, we have a start time, but we finish when we finish.
And we start when we start.
That's a difference there. We finish when we finish. Why? Because just because 12 o'clock rolled around, it doesn't mean that the ones to whom we are speaking have an understanding of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It may take to one to do that, but within the realm of the Caucasian, at 12 o'clock, shut it down, preacher. Otherwise, you won't be here next Sunday. So I see that.
Mhm.
And that, how we say that the German engineering is the best, in pop culture or whatever. They're the best at, quote unquote, the best at engineering because they're the worst at being people.
They really are.
And it is that sort of distinction that that is more difficult for them to reconcile with the fundamental nature of reality, being spiritual and about unity. That is why world-ending events always come out of Germany or people related directly to that.
That's when you said that, so much came into my mind. The most ruthless out of Europeans were Germans.
Oh, yeah.
The Germanic people have always been ruthless. And when you read the history of Europe,
Yeah. Whatever those people are, mine is Austria and Germany, because I think Hitler was born in Austria. There's something about whatever dark vortex that exists on this planet is somewhere over there. But I just wanted to quickly say that's why if you ever remember that one news story about the little girl who did a study about the basically every single US president except one, I think, has their lineage traced back to some English king. But most of the aristocracy of Europe is from Germany, including England and other places.
Yeah. That's what I was reading some European history a couple of days ago. And I noticed how when Germany, when the Germans got involved in the efforts to conquer the Byzantine Empire, how ruthless they were. And I also noticed that it is the Germans who instilled a lot of anger in Eastern Europeans, specifically because of the way the Germans interacted with them in a ruthless way. That doesn't mean that England and France didn't do the same thing, but they was not as ruthless as the Germans were. And I do believe that Eastern Europeans function the way they do because they're angry. They're angry at their fellow Europeans for the way they were treated and ostracized by them, and considering them to be the lesser of all Europeans because of how they their exit from the Caucasus Mountains in Eastern Europe. And when you look at that, what you begin to see is that the last group of people who were, quote unquote, and I put this in definitely in quotations because it's relative, who were civilized by the African were Eastern European. Even though the Germans were supposed to have been civilized, they were civil until it was something they wanted. And then it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It's fascinating when you look at the history of the world as opposed to looking at the history of the Americans.
Mm-hmm.
I think about what this discussion though, and looking at time, and we're a lot closer to understanding this than we realize. I mean, how many times have you been driving and you look at your clock and you're 15 minutes away from a place you need to be, and you say, I'm not going to be late, and you don't go 100 miles an hour, but you pull up in that parking lot in time to walk in that building on time. How did you do that? The other, other examples you can think of. I remember when I was a kid, I didn't have a clock in my room. In fact, I didn't even have a wristwatch, but I could go to sleep and say what time I was going to wake up because I needed to do something, especially on the weekends, and I'll wake up and get up and know exactly what time it was. So there's something inside of us. We're familiar with these things, but as Audrey alluded to, anyway, we get mixed up in our daily lives, and we have all of these to-do lists and deadlines and other people we're responsible for, and we get caught up in the mundane duties of life, and we forget about it, and time ends up ruling us instead of us ruling time. And so I think this discussion is very relevant and something that we needed to discuss. So
I do too. I think it's very relevant because, but I also think that it speaks volumes about the religion that we were caught up in.
Yeah.
And how it took malleable African's essence and molded it into what it wanted it to be. And we are in the process now of freeing ourselves from that.
I have a question. I'm sorry, I yield.
Well, let me just say real quick, the same where we're talking about every single second of your day regulated, a law that applies to every single aspect of your experience and every single aspect of society, a religious ritual that fills the lack of spiritual experience for every single thing. All of these are all sort of connected in that they are all the sort of increasingly complicated way that the intellect attempts to make up for the lack of genuine spiritual interface with the spirit, the creator, and the nature of the self. But all those things are related. Anyway, thank you.
So my question is, do we time travel and not realize that we do it? Because I thought about what the statement Ron had just made, which makes a lot of sense. So my question to the family is, do we time travel and don't even realize it?
We do. It's not so much time traveling as it is moving beyond the boundaries of time. Moving in space rather than in time. And when I say moving, if Ron said this about I'm not going to be late, that is a declaration. However, it is also a determination to move beyond time. And we do so many things that are spiritual, and we don't give any thought to it ever. I got a question, but I want to finish with Evelyn, see if Evelyn clear first, that someone sent to me.
Even, can I say this, Pastor, before Evelyn? Even I think in our meditation is the same thing. We're moving in beyond time. If you consciously realize that you are communicating with the ancestors, you've eliminated time. You've moved it out of your way.
So that's the same thing that Jesus did, right? When
if he existed.
When he
I'm messing with you, Evelyn. Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't. Yes, didn't Jesus do that? And again, we do it as well. We just, like we said, but you answered what I had, my question. But go ahead, I'm done. Thank you, Pastor Jay.
In Asher's book about the Kemetic tree of life, it talks about this aspect of time where we have motion and no motion. And we've always talked about motion and rest. And so for the ordinary human being, there's motion. There, as everybody has talked about, we keep up with the time. We go to work, we get up, we eat dinner at a certain time, etc. All of that is about the consciousness being in motion. Even our thinking is in motion when we tie it to time. But the difference is we've got to learn to balance that, the motion and the rest, because it is at the rest period that we become centered and that we understand and connect with the spiritual that we are, consciously connect with the spirit that we are. During that period of rest, where we're not thinking about what am I going to do, when am I going to do it, how am I going to do it, et cetera, et cetera. We're simply being and existing and being one with the Creator. So when we learn to find this place where there is no movement, where there's rest, then we're able to perceive the creative God that we are and the creative Creator that created us. And so this concept of motion and motionless, motion brought us to a spot where we could consciously perceive a physical realm. You know, it slowed us down, as Sheldon talked about, slowed us to a more denser level, where the vibrations are more denser, that we could perceive the physical realm. the task for us in our spiritual growth is to understand that the physical is not what's real. And we understand that when we talk about meditation. Meditation helps us consciously understand and see that we are, what you say, Pastor, is in the world, meaning in the physical world, but not of the physical world. That's a state of meditation, which it helps us see from that perspective that we are not the physical beings that we think we see, that we are more than that. So, as everybody has been saying, we are not bound by time and space. That's we talk about the principles of Maya. The truth is we are spirit. We are not bound by time and space, because time and space, if we let that guide us and dominate us, hold us in the physical realm, if that resonates.
It does.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. And Barbara, too, I think about how we say time flies when you're having fun. When you in that particular place, you don't even think about time. You know, I just see something, but thank you. Okay, I'm done.
Someone sent me a question by text when we were talking about Germany. And the question was about white nationalists who use the swastika. The question was, do they subconsciously see the Germans as being their God? And that will lead me to discuss an understanding of what the swastika means. The original intent of the swastika. It was a symbol of divinity and spirituality when it came out of Kemet. And it was transposed to it being a symbol of the Nazi movement. And the connotations of that were, the beliefs of what it represented was changed actually from what it symbolized in the beginning to what it was appropriated to be. It's Europeans took this swastika and transposes its existence into something evil, as opposed to what it originally meant. What most people don't think about or don't realize is that Hitler was well versed in the understandings of the Egyptian or the Kemetic priesthood, and he had scientists studying it continuously, and he had a better understanding of it than most people did. So he appropriated that symbol as because he saw it as a sense of power, and the power that he saw in it was divine power, and he set himself up to be all powerful. But the
Does
Bible,
it not continue though, Pastor?
it does. Yes, it does indeed. Yes, ma'am.
When we talk about this issue of wokeness and to be
Yes.
awakened spiritually is a good thing, but
Yes.
they've taken that word and made it a symbol of evil. Being woke means the total opposite of its original intent of being consciously aware of rightness, of who you are, of enlightenment. But now wokeness is used to describe the state where you are a leftist. You are. Anyway, I'm not going to go into it, but I wanted to make the point that it continues today, where we redefine the original intent of the word and make it what we want it to be.
Right.
Does that change his power?
No. When you appropriate that, it doesn't change the power of it. It bastardizes the power of it. And it gives you a false sense of security, of being dominant. And we look at that swastika in that manner. But that's not the only symbol that's been bastardized by Europeans. The whole idea of the cross, the Ankh, have been bastardized by Europeans. The Ankh is considered a pagan symbol. The cross is considered a Christian symbol, a symbol of spirituality, when in actuality, the original symbol of the cross was death, was a closed womb, unable to give birth to anything, as opposed to the Ankh representing an open womb that is fertile. So the whole concept of appropriation has been something that the Europeans have always done. The bottom line, well, let me say this. Europeans don't have a culture. Everything that they call their culture has been appropriated from somebody else, from some other group of people. So there is it should not be a surprise to us that symbols have been appropriated as well. And the all-seeing eye appears on the money, and that all-seeing eye is referencing the eye, the pineal gland. That's what it's referencing. Yet it was appropriated by European Masons as being a symbol of Masonry being able to see beyond what any other group of people are able to observe, thus giving them the power to rule over people. And one of the greatest advantages that George Washington had when he was chosen to lead was that he was a worshiper master in Masonry. And he had been inducted into the Hall of Masonry in Europe before he came to this country. So those the all-seeing eye, the pyramid, all these things have been appropriated by Europeans to mean what they want it to mean, as opposed to what it should. And what we have done, we have embraced the meanings that they have given to it, thus losing our sense of power in relationship to it. And now what we are doing is reclaiming the true meanings of these symbols. And reclaiming the true meaning of these symbols, we are able to appropriate the true nature of what they represent, thus using them for the benefit of humanity as opposed to the domination of humanity. Make sense? Mr. Runt?
Yes, sir. It makes sense.
Okay. The thing, when we think about it, we're talking about time, we're talking about a lot of things. What makes us human? What is it that makes us human? If my mom transitioned, and in her transitioning, she ceased to be human. She's spiritual, right? She's energy. So a spirit being housed in a physical place is what's called a human. Now, simply because you have that you are in this physical place called a body does not mean that you have the attributes of humanity. You are a human who do not realize or who have not embraced the attributes of being human. Does that make sense so far? Help me, somebody.
Say the last part one more time for me.
Yeah.
The fact that you are in a human body does not mean that you have appropriated the aspects of being human.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Could you
Because
explain that a little bit more? I'm sorry.
I beg your pardon.
I'm not quite sure I understand why just
Oh,
because
you are in a human body,
okay.
but it doesn't mean that you have embraced the aspects or the attributes of being a human. The attributes of being a human is love and kindness, mercy, empathy.
All right.
So if you have not incorporated in your life the attributes of being a human, then that means that they have to at some point be incorporated by you. But if you have no clue of what that looks like, then how are you expected to do it? It happens through the God in the earth who is supposed to bring an understanding of Godship, bring an understanding of humanity to you. The idea of a misappropriation of human traits, we have experienced that. We experienced it when we were enslaved. We experienced it when we were lynched. We experienced it when we were oppressed. Those are non-human attributes. But when we are able to see that enslavement of humans and treating humans as property is antithetical to the spiritual nature of who you're supposed to be. When you begin to see that and begin to appropriate these attributes or incorporate these attributes into your life, then that is when you live up to the principles of what it means to be a human. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That does.
Okay.
I
So-
have a question, though. I have a question.
Sure.
We talked about a human, and then we talked about a spirit. And I'm getting a little confused. The human, you're saying, has the basic attributes. Its original attributes were that of loving kindness, righteousness, truth, spirit, gentleness, mercy, all of that.
Yes.
So my question is not that the role of the human in this physical realm? Is that not why time and space were created? So that it learned that was its original attribute, and that it really is spirit, and that those spiritual attributes of what it needed, of what I need to incorporate in my being to understand the divinity that I am. I'm not sure I am putting my question out there very clearly. Does anybody understand where I think I'm headed?
When I think about a human, It takes more than a spirit living in a physical body or a physical space to be human. You can be in the place or in the space of a human, but what makes you human are the attributes that you express in regards to those around you, in particular, those who don't even look like you.
I
So
think
is human one of those words that has been just taken and its meaning transposed? And because right now we refer to everyone living as humanity.
yes.
Yes.
And so are they zombies? Are we all zombies walking around without any quote unquote life until we ascertain become aware that we lack those attributes which make us human, like loving kindness, blah, blah, blah. So do you follow what I'm asking?
Are you asking that what does the awareness, making those aware of who they are or the attributes that they should be incorporating? Are we supposed to do that? And that's what makes them human. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because we refer to everybody as humanity.
And
Whether we know who we are or whether we don't, we say everybody's a human being.
everyone is a human because they are spirit in a body. However, everyone who is human is not expressive of the attributes of a human.
Okay. So that doesn't change the fact that they are humans. They just are not aware of the divinity to the extent that they express that
Yes.
the truth of who they really are.
Yeah. I'm gonna say something that sounds maybe crazy. I got you, Nick. I'm gonna say something that it sound really crazy, maybe. I don't know. Europeans know that we are gods. Europeans are very much aware that Africans are gods. And I'm talking about the ones who are in charge of everything. And the reason I say that is because they are very much aware that those things that were invented, those things that that gives us an understanding of how to treat the body when something goes wrong with it, they know where it came from. They're very much aware of that. They are very much aware of the nurturing traits of the African. They're very much aware of the fertility of an African. And all of these things they have used against the African, made it a negative thing. They're very much aware of the wisdom of the African. They're aware of these things. So why is it that they are in denial about this? I believe that the reason is they're not in denial about it, but the reason they are the way they are is because they do not see that in themselves. They don't believe that they can possibly have those attributes. Therefore, they make every effort to control them, and when it is convenient, to appropriate them for themselves. Does that make sense? I do believe that. Europeans know that Africans are not going to commit genocide against them. They know that. They know that that's not in our nature. They're very much aware of that. But yet, they use it. They use it in a negative way against us, and we buy into that. The Europeans know that Africans have never been cannibals, but they were, especially when they landed at Plymouth Rock. They know that they were cannibals, but they have appropriated that to us. And they know we've never been cannibals, but they understand the attributes. Why do you think IBM would hire a man of African descent and put him in a space of an engineer when our people were not allowed to be in any place of authority? And he comes up with the chip that to this day causes a computer to be able to function. Why? Why is it that Edison had as his assistant, I forget, Latimer, as his assistant, and that bulb did not work until Latimer put the filament in there? And Edison told him not to because it was not going to work. And he told him that there has to be polarity within this bulb for it to work. And he did it against the will of Edison, and Edison got credit. Why do you think he had him in there? In that laboratory? For the same reason that all of them have had us in laboratories. My chemistry teacher has nothing to boast about, but my chemistry teacher was one of the principals who helped develop the atom bomb. And she looked like me. So why do you think they were there? Of course, Alzheimer, or whatever his name is, Oppenheimer, gets 100% of the credit for it, but he didn't do that alone, and everyone knows that. So why is it? It's not because they think that we are barbarians. That's not because they think that we are devoid of intelligence. They have convinced us of that, and they have convinced the peons who look like them of that. But the ones who are in charge, they know better. They know better. That's why they keep us around. We have to understand that ourselves. And we cannot condemn them for being ignorant. We can't do that of who they are. Ron?
I think Nick was first.
Wait a minute. Barbara Jean, does that clear something a little bit at least?
A little bit, yes.
Okay. Nick?
I was just going to say quickly, you know, when somebody does something horrible, we say they lack humanity.
Yeah.
They're still human, ostensibly, but the big range of what that could be in terms of behavior and awareness and consciousness, etc.
Right.
Thank you.
Makes sense. Thank you.
I think the word human, being human, speaks of a transitioning period for all of us. In the New Testament, we see where deliverance constantly called itself the Son of Man. In other words, I want to remind you of who you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be human, but you act like animals. You rape, you kill, you take everything by violence. You look at your body rules you, as we talked about time. You take what you want when you're hungry. You rape when you're lustful. You steal when you're greedy. You act more like the bear and the lion more than the bear and the lion. But when you recognize who you are, when you first start to become aware of that, you cannot become spiritual until you become human. So we call everybody human, but humanity is a transition that you take from that animalistic place that you that rules you in your mind. So humanity is something, I guess you have to call everybody, but the word human being mean that you are always becoming something. You're always in this transition of recognition, at this place of becoming aware. And you cannot be spiritual until you recognize that you're human. And I don't mean that just in saying that I'm flesh and blood and I have a heartbeat and I'm breathing. you have to recognize something internally that I see, that there is more to it than just being the taker, or the king of the head of the totem pole in the animal world. I'm more than that. So I don't know what else to call people. And yes, you can say everybody is human, but that's a term used loosely. I don't see it, looking at it from a spiritual perspective. I don't see everybody as being human. And again, I'm not, don't mean that insultingly at all. I'm just talking about the actions that we see on a daily basis.
Well, I see them being human, but just because you are a Johnson doesn't mean that you have to um, incorporate in your life the attributes of being a Johnson. You don't act like us. You're different than we are. It's what we hear sometimes about people in our family. Where did you come from? Your attitude, the only thing they're saying is your attitude and aspirations are so different than everyone else's. So when I look at this human thing, I see that you could be a lion but not act like a lion. You could be a human but not act like a human because you don't have those traits. You don't exhibit those traits, those attributes of being a human. Yet you in that space to be one. That is, and the thing that makes that real is this physical body. Does that make sense? And then when we look at deliverance in the New Testament, only thing it's saying is that there are traits in your life that you have to be delivered from. And quite frankly, the ones who are caught up the most in not understanding what it means to be human are religious people. How many times have you heard religious folk say that this battle between the Arabs and the Jews have been going on for centuries? How many times have you heard that? That is the dumbest thing in the world to say. That since Hagar and Abraham, this thing has been, there has been a battle between them. That's crazy. Because no one has, they have not taken the time to listen to what they're saying and to find out whether or not it's true. So what am I saying to you? Why am I saying that makes them less than human? Because they are in agreement with what's happening in Palestine. Because Jews are God's chosen people. Those are religious folks thinking. That's how they think. Does that make sense, Ron?
It does.
I guess it doesn't, because you don't look like
Well,
it.
I
Ron,
just go ahead. I'm sorry, Nate.
no, go ahead, actually.
No, I think that is the word that it has been overused and misunderstood, being human.
Okay, I can go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of this is,
Hey, good morning, everyone. Can y'all hear me?
Of course. We hear you.
Yo, okie doke. And a good attribute for life is the more you can accommodate life, the more you give life a chance to be life. And the more when you're an accommodating person, the less likely you stand a chance of being nice, by way of a Latin word that means you're not human. So just a good attribute for being a human. How well do you accommodate life? How how do you deal with, or how do I deal with black men who voted for Trump, and how do I deal with black people who voted for Biden, and how do I deal with black people who didn't vote and black people are independent? I should treat them all the same by way of a fundamental concept. So the more we accommodate life and we give life a chance, the less you see a hierarchy. We are an accommodating group. That was one of the things in talking to Bill. I say, Bill, man, I need you to do a favor for me. I want you to listen to this group that I'm a part of. And he said, George, tell me about them. I said, it's an accommodating group. And that was it. So I just think a good attribute for life is how well can you accommodate life? And when you accommodate, you also have an impact on time. A spiritual time and a physical time. Because at the end of the day or end of the month, time gonna tell everything now. So it's just with me, I just look at it, a good attribute for just enjoying life is how well can I accommodate the things that come my way. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Joy. Nick, you had something?
The reason the sort of European mindset that we speak about is the least accommodating of life and the most, apparently the most desiring of imposing hierarchy onto life itself so that they can sit atop the artificial hierarchy they created, is in their unwillingness to recognize their own humanity in the sense that you spoke about it, Ron, because you must recognize that in order to transition to spirituality and move through that process. So I suppose we'll talk more about it tomorrow, but I'm sorry, I see it as such an insult that Trump is being inaugurated on Martin Luther King Day. But it is in many ways, the culmination of that mindset in its unwillingness, in its kicking and screaming like a sort of spiritual toddler, in its unwillingness to recognize that humanity. And I believe that the period we're going into is the fullest expression of that ignorance and selfishness, and what I would describe as an addiction to the products of a selfish ego. Is kind of like how if someone is addicted to drugs or whatever, they know they're hurting people in whatever they got to do to, get money to buy the drugs, but they still do it. Yeah. And then in some sense, that is what the European epitomizes, is the willingness to worship the ego. Even if at some place deep, not all of them, but at some place within them, they know it is out of balance. So I think that is part of what this represents. It's just the apex of whatever the sort of true religion of the white supremacy. Well, white supremacy is the religion, but I'm saying the apex of whatever that is what is about to be represented in the people who, in appearance, dominate this country. But as I've said before, even in your physical body, until the disease expresses itself fully, can't be dealt with. The disease you see is the process of the body trying to get rid of it in the first place. That process has already started. And as we are in this period of transition, we're just attempting to mitigate the symptoms of that disease. Hopefully it will not be as bad as it can be. But anyway, thank you.
When Monday, you talking about biometrics. Trump being inaugurated, you talk about a biometric. But when you look at it, you see, at least I see it anyway, this African who thought he was doing the right thing in order to bring people to a place of balance, because that's essentially what he was talking about with equality, versus the mindset of the European who feels like it is superior to everyone. And people of color, especially the African, is the least person, or least what on this earth. Those are the diametrics that we're looking at on Monday. And the question is whether or not people are going to really recognize those diametrics. Especially when you consider the fact that one of the most racist, if there is such a thing, groups in Germany are going to be represented at the inauguration. They were invited to be at the inauguration. And they are being embraced with swastikas and all as guests on the same day that we celebrate the life, the legacy, and the assassination of an African who sought to bring humanity together. That's a hell of a diametric, man.
Yeah.
It is, but that's what we are for.
Yeah.
That's why we got them where we want them.
Yes.
That truth illuminates. It exposes. It does not allow darkness to hide itself. And so, saying all this, putting it in the macro, understanding from the spiritual aspect of what's happening, is what takes the power out of that diametric. And only a few people may understand the extent of how much power is going to be bled out of that diametric, but we understand, and so it's a good thing. I mean, even all of the billionaires who are going to be there, who are in the cabinet. Oh man, we are in an opportune. I don't want to say place of position or time, because we've been talking about being beyond that. We're in an opportune time to go beyond time and space, and to just simply rest on righteousness, and to extol that righteousness be manifested in this physical realm. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And that sounds crazy too.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And
I
I'm
say you
sorry.
feel insulting, right?
It is, but I see this as duality, opposites. Pastor, just like you were talking about all these symbols and things being appropriated by people who are using them for adverse reasons. And then talking about humanness. I see humanness is in a duality too. It can be opposites because it's kind of like spirituality versus religion. Those are opposites. But when in spirituality, you experience God. In religion, you believe in God, which is not necessarily the same thing, because when you lose when you lose the experience of God, then you have to tell yourself, I believe in it. And then you use all these rituals and things to sort of bring it, to sort of give it a life, if
Music.
you understand what I mean. So you have to give it life by creating all these rituals and things, and then that reinforces your belief. But that still doesn't necessarily mean that you're experiencing the Creator. So when you do all these ritualistic things, you make it outside of yourself. When God is not outside of yourself, he is inside, in the inner person, in the inner man, inner woman, whatever. But people who are always claiming I'm a human being, but they do things, their actions indicate that they are totally opposite of what we mean by being a human, a person who is grounded in spiritual things and who exhibits loving kindness. But so it's the same kind of thing. When you lose the experience of really being a human who's empathetic, compassionate, who shows loving kindness, then you externalize everything. I'm a human being. I believe I'm a human being and you're not. So it's this thing with duality and trying to find a place when you're not really experiencing the Creator. So I think in all of that stuff, even in politics, people who are insecure, they project a lot of things. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's a projection. When you're the real deal, you don't have to do all that projection. And when you're not, you do the projection because you want other people to believe it so that you can believe it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it makes sense.
Anyway, that's
So
all
I have a
got.
question for Audrey. Audrey,
Yes.
did you just describe a zombie, the actions of a zombie?
Maybe.
Because when you don't, yeah, that's what I see.
Maybe. Yeah, an really insecure person will always sort of externalize to make themselves believe whatever it is they're trying to believe.
But their creator is
So,
the
maybe you're right about the zombie thing.
their creator is the one who made them a zombie. The one who institutes the ritual creates zombies by making them feel like they have to follow through.
Oh yeah, the MAGA people are like zombies. Yeah.
Really, they really are, and they will remain so until they lose their Affordable Care Act.
Got to get rid of Obamacare, but I want to keep my affordable care.
Yeah, that's and there are several other things that are coming down the pike that people are not paying any attention to. The effects of the hurricane. There are an enclave of people, especially in Louisiana, who said that they have sought to get a grant approved for repairs in their community. And it's a community of Trumpites who has all these vulgar signs in their yards about Biden versus Trump. And the one who they reverence as their God says that the program that Biden used, they are going to end it when they get in office. So the very people who need the help the most are the people who voted for Trump and going to lose the most. So I'm honestly, I'm one of those metaphorically popcorn people, stocking up on popcorn and waiting till the movie starts on Monday, because people think that this is going to be short-lived or it's going to be different. Keep in mind that the first time that this man was in an administration, he wanted to be reelected. This time he knows he's not going to be elected president again. He doesn't care. And people like Stephen Miller know that this is their last opportunity. So we are going to see and have some experiences that are not so good. And I'm looking forward to them. Because if things are not exposed, they can't be dealt with, as Nick did with the illustration of disease in the body. But I'm done, guys. I talk with you guys tomorrow.
Great discussion, guys. Great energy. Thank you. And
Thanks, sir.
we will resume tomorrow at 11 a.m. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.